right? And at least the way I see things, I get one life. This is my shot to do what I want and impact the world. And for some reason, I've allocated 8% of it to this organization and this program. So I better believe in it. And that's become so much more true so far on AI. Because literally every single day, I'm leading this program with 2 other people from the global level. And I mean, the work never stops, right? And the challenges never stop. And the self-doubt and the inspirations and the cycles of dramatic life that you go through never stop. And what keeps it all going, keeps it all worthwhile, is why you're doing what you're doing. So I want to talk with you guys a little bit about that. Do you know if we have a clicker? Do I have to come over here anytime? One of these click the slides? You can? Yes, so can you? So, I have a question for you guys. What issue were you passionate about as a kid? I don't know, maybe you weren't passionate about any issues as a kid, but I was. So I'm curious if anybody could share, like when I was a kid, this was something in the world that I was really passionate about, and I thought we should fix it. Anyone? Traveling. You want to travel. It's not really an issue in the world, but it's what you're passionate about. Okay. Cool. Anyone else? Yes? Sorry, what? War. Stopping war. Yeah. Yep. Yes? Poverty. Yes?
Animal rights.
Animal rights. Yep. Me too. I love animals. Yeah?
Education.
Education. Okay. Anyone else? Yes?
Global warming.
Global warming. It's really hot here, so I can understand. You're like, fuck this shit. Let's fix it. So when I was a kid, I was passionate about many of those things too. I was passionate about poverty. To me, I mean, I come from the United States, right? So I was like, wait, so more than half the world is living in poverty. That's fucked up. We should fix that. But I didn't know how, right? I was also passionate about animal rights. I still am. I'm just passionate about I'm passionate about defending people that are defenseless, or things that are defenseless, right? So animals, children, women who are being beaten, or anything like that. Like those are issues that I care about a lot, and I think I want to dedicate my life to helping with, right? What's interesting is, the reason I asked this question, like what were you passionate about as a kid, is when you're a kid, I think you take for granted that you can change the world. I did, right? It's like, so poverty, that's a big problem. We should just do this. And I remember saying to my brother, I was like, we should just like give them more money, like then they won't be poor. And my brother was like, yeah, well, it's really complicated, there's economic systems, there's supply and demand, blah, blah, blah. He's right, of course, it's not that he's wrong, right? When I was a kid, I was like, well, we should just fix it. Or like, yeah, why, that's wrong in the world, we should just fix it. And somewhere, like in school, in life, and everything, that sort of gets taken away out of you. You study math, you do a lot of things, people tell you it's difficult, people tell you you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. And at least me, I don't know about you guys, but me, I definitely lost track of like what I'm passionate about and what I wanted to dedicate my life to doing. I think when I was in high school and the first years of college, what I wanted to do was get the best grades and get the best scholarships. And like have my picture in the newspaper and stuff like that, and travel as much as possible. But it was very self-interested stuff, right? I want to travel, I want to win awards, I want to get good grades, I want to get a good job, like very self-interested. And then I think because of AIESEC, I sort of rediscovered the things I was really passionate about. And what's interesting, this is what I'll get to, is that when you discover the issues you're passionate about, how do you go about solving them? Or how do you go about creating people capable of solving them? And that's sort of what AIESEC gets to. Did you click again? Yeah, so this is my assumption. I think that most people dream naturally of how they can change the world, but they lose track of it somewhere. So that's what that is about. Indeed, in 1948, for those of you who have never had a Clear the Why session, this will be some history for you guys. In 1948, there was a group of people our age in Europe who were also passionate about changing the world, believed they actually could, they didn't have it beaten out of them, and they decided to form AIESEC as an organization. And when AIESEC was formed as an organization, it was about, we need to create more friendly relations between countries, right? You've heard this story probably, we came out of World War II, how do we ever stop this? It's such a terrible thing, it was. And they say the way we can solve this is, as young people, we have the power to change the world, and we have to connect these countries together so that we don't have the same misunderstandings anymore, and we all understand that we're part of one big human family. So they formed AIESEC. The question, I mean, of course, those people, they wanted to make the world a better place, right? So they're like, we want to fulfill humanity's potential, create peace, but how do you do that is actually like the challenge. Of course, every kid wants to do that too, but they get beaten out of it because they don't know how, and people tell them it's impossible. So how do you do that? Next. So how do you do that? All right, so I'm kind of into history and stuff, so I wanted to share some history with you guys and see what history you know. Can you click one time? Just one time. Do you guys know who that is? Anybody know who that is?
Something.
Close. I think anyway. It's Plato and Aristotle. Yeah, Plato and Aristotle, right? Okay, so who was Plato's teacher? No. Plato's teacher, the person who taught Plato, was Socrates. Yeah, and then Plato taught Aristotle, and then Aristotle taught who? No, Cicero's from Rome. Alexander. There you go. Alexander the Great. You see the connections here because we're in Egypt, right? Okay. Yeah, and then what did Alexander do? He took ideas about how the world should be, and that was enough to motivate him, along with like desire for power and being probably weird in the head or something, to try to conquer the world, including Egypt, including much of the Middle East, getting as far as India. And then he died, right? And it became a bunch of different kingdoms, right? So actually, the reason I bring this up is so you can click one time. Yeah. So actually, how do I know about Plato and Aristotle? The only reason I know about Plato and Aristotle, the only reason that anyone in Western education or any education in the world knows anything about Plato and Aristotle is because of Alexander the Great conquering the Middle East and Egypt, and them, like that education being taken to the Middle East and Egypt, because in Europe it was totally forgotten. I don't know if you guys know this, but in Europe it was totally forgotten. And actually, when Europe relearned Plato and Aristotle's philosophy, they learned it from Arabic. So the Greek things were translated into Arabic, and then it was translated back like thousands of years later, and that's how we learned Aristotelian philosophy and Platonic philosophy and all that stuff, right? So what was all that philosophy that actually we learned? You can click. Plato imagined how to bring about the ideal society. I don't know if you guys, anybody's read Plato or Plato's Republic or something, but right, exactly. So Plato wants to create the ideal society. Every kid wants to create the ideal society. AIESEC wants to create the ideal society. Super cool, right? Everybody wants to make the world a better place. Yeah, so Plato's thing was that there's like some people who are born able to understand things on a very high level, right? They're the most noble, the most educated, they have the right values and all that, so they should lead the world. Actually, his vision for the ideal society was that there would be these philosopher kings, right? That the philosophers like him should rule society, okay? Next. Keep it? Yeah. So that was his version of how we make the world a better place. You find the people that are most able to lead because they have the right values, right education, they're nobly born or something, and they should lead society. AIESEC, this is what we say, that we're the platform for young people to explore and discover their leadership potential to positively impact society. So let's look at how those compare. Sorry, this is interesting for me. What was interesting for you guys? Let's look at how those compare. Click. Next. Yeah, next. Okay, let's look at how Plato and AIESEC compare. So can you click? Plato, some people are born to be great leaders. With those people leading, we create the best society for humanity, right? Don't click it. What's different about AIESEC? How would we disagree with this statement? Yeah?
Everyone is a leader.
Everyone is a leader? Okay, it's one way of saying it, yeah? Yes?
AIESEC would teach them to be great leaders.
Right, okay.
Leadership can be developed.
Leadership can be developed, yes?
So that AIESEC actually creates create leaders more than just work. It's not anything. It doesn't work. AIESEC actually create leaders.
Yeah.
Everyone is born with the potential to be a leader, and with unleashing this potential, we create the best society for humanity.
Yeah. Can you click? Leadership can be developed, and every young person in the world should discover their contribution. They can discover their contribution and become a leader in the world, right? This is the difference between AIESEC and Plato. So let's hope that we're smarter than Plato. We'll see. If not, we're fucking things up, right? So yeah, this is the difference, right? And this is the philosophy that was in much of the world for a very long time. And this is what AIESEC is agreeing. We say, actually, every young person in the world can be a leader, and we can cultivate that leadership. And then, if we cultivate that leadership in every young person in the world, that is the best society, right? You click again. So, we say that leadership can be developed. How do we develop leadership? Anybody take a stab at that? How do we develop leadership if we say it can be developed? Yeah.
Through all like ELD programs.
ELD programs, okay. True. Anything to add to that? ELD programs have roles that you fill that can that allow you this platform to discover your leadership potential. Yes.
Actually, all the phases make you discover yourself that you are good at in some point. يعني, in GCDP, in GIP, in TMP, in TLP, everything you take something unique from it. So after all of this, يعني, you're being discovering your potential and your passion and trying to develop yourself in that as much as possible.
Anyone else?
I think it's usually about the challenging environment.
Challenging environment. That's what we might call like an element of an ELD experience, right? So like part of a team experience or a leadership experience or a GCP or a GIP is that it challenges you. That's one element. So we're getting close to something here. Yes?
Yeah, by going through the inner and outer journey.
Can you click? Nah, you're all right. That's what I had to say. Good job. Yeah. So inner and outer journey. So how many people heard of inner and outer journey? I just want to gauge how I'm doing here. Okay, cool. So it's not complicated, and that's one of the best things about it. This is a very uncomplicated way to explain what AIESEC does, right? So there's one of these elements of a leadership experience, which is the challenging environment. But there's other elements as well. So these are things that, like, if these are a part of your experience, then you're likely to develop leadership, let's say, right? One of those is the challenging environment, a challenging role environment, right? Another element is interacting with multiple stakeholders, because then you're accountable to new people, you're responsible for more people than just yourself. A support system, and you fulfilling responsibility and trying to reach goals, right? So these things are all what we call an outer journey, right? The outer journey, what that means by outer is that it's outside of you. It's what's happening to you or the environment you're interacting with, right? So like, when you're on an exchange, the outer journey is more the content of the internship that you're doing, the culture shock you're experiencing from being in a new country, right? And then there's these elements, which we call the inner journey. That's setting goals for yourself, reflecting on your experience, understanding your values as a result of your experience. Like when you get challenged and you reflect, seeing, well, what does that reveal about myself, right? And then reinventing yourself based on that revelation, okay? So I've discovered these values, I've discovered this about myself, I've discovered this about my own culture based on reflecting on the experience in a new challenging environment. And so I actually want to be this kind of person because I recognize that these are my values and this is what I care about. And that's what we call the inner journey, because that's what's more happening, I don't know, in something between your mind and your heart, right? Where you're like becoming purpose-driven about things and you're discovering things about yourself. That's what we call the inner journey. And this in the middle is the experience itself, right? So we call this the purpose of the journey for society. So what that means is that the journey you're living, whether it's a team experience, a leadership experience, GIP or GCDP, should have some purpose in society, right? So if you're doing a GCDP, like what is that contributing to in society? Or if you're doing a team experience, what issue is it that you want to be solving that this team experience is helping you learn how to solve, right? It might not be directly, but from this experience, you're learning to become the kind of person that can solve that issue, right? And all of these experiences, all of our ELD experiences, should be leading to some purpose in society. Because when people live that experience, then they're learning how, after AIESEC, they can solve issues in society, right? Does it make sense? So we call those the inner journey and the outer journey. There's a lot in this session, and in a lot of AIESEC stuff, there's a lot of like frameworks and models that try to explain things. And sometimes they take time to sink in, right? And I think over time, you learn more about them, okay? So if you feel that you get this, but you don't fully get it or something, that's fine. It's fine, right? You'll see it hopefully in your next conference, and the next conference, you'll live it yourself. And over time, you come to understand these things. That's all part of your outer journey and inner journey, right? Is understanding your outer journey and inner journey. Next. So getting to GIP, so that's sort of clarity to why stuff about AIESEC, right? So we're going to focus on GIP, all of us. This is the program that we're a part of. The question is, are we actually delivering inner and outer journeys in GIP either to our team members who are teams, to ourselves who are leading it, or to the EPs who are living the experiences, right? So what we did is there's recently a Leadership in Every Experience Summit in Poland, led by Olga from our team, and Nikita, also from our team. She runs GIP along with me. She's from the same city as Divya in India. And we asked people who had lived the GIP program. Input. Yeah, so we asked them what leadership that they were developing. We got 600 responses. Click again. Yeah. So we got responses to a survey, and we also interviewed the participants themselves. So at the summit, they were calling participants who had answered the survey and trying to find out more about their experiences. And everything they were trying to get to is what leadership does GIP actually develop? So we say that GIP develops leadership, but let's like validate that based on the people that have lived the experience. What leadership traits do they think they've developed? Or what leadership traits can we see they've developed based on their surveys and interviews? So I want to show you guys the results of that. You can click again. So this is what the leadership traits that people said GIP gave to them. Belief in themselves, proactive learning, that they were independent and results-driven, that they were able to work in a multicultural environment, they were more open-minded, fast adapting, and they gained professional expertise. So this is, according to people that have lived the experience, the leadership they got out of GIP. I think that's useful for us to know, like very important for us to know that people who go through the experiences that we're dedicating a year of our lives to growing are developing this kind of leadership. Next. Click again. Right. So how many of you have seen this before? Okay, cool. So a few of you. So this is, it's about making products. It's a product development like model, let's say. So what it says is that AIESEC, our products should be rooted in these three circles for them to develop leadership and be successful. So one of those is that they need to be valuable in the market. That means like to companies or to society, let's say, they have to need what we're trying to offer. And the organizational value, our organization is about developing leadership. So the organizational value means the product we're selling needs to lead to a person developing leadership through their experience. And the individual value refers to our team members, the people who are facilitating and delivering the experiences. And it says for a product to be successful, the product has to deliver to our members what they want. It needs to deliver leadership to them, and it needs to meet like their expectations of working in a team in GIP. So, for example, like to make this practical, let's say you had some product that would clearly develop leadership in EPs, and which our members feel very motivated to develop or to deliver, but you can't sell it to any companies, right? Like companies don't want to buy. Well, then it's just not going to happen. So that product isn't going to work. If companies aren't paying for someone to come work for them in GIP, that experience doesn't exist in real life, and you come up with an idea of how to develop leadership, but not one that you can actually put into the market and grow over time, so that you develop more and more leadership. So it's not a successful product for us, right? Or let's say you have a product that has a clear market value, and your members can learn how to sell and deliver, and learn about how to work in a team by selling and delivering it. But actually, if an EP were to do that experience, they wouldn't learn anything valuable about leadership, right? So I don't know, maybe think about a really bad quality TN or something in some company that's doing just call center work, and there's no leadership development out of it. Yeah.
I think that's the difference between the two values.
Okay. So this is if the market valued it. Market being like a company. Okay. This is if the organization. This is if it develops leadership in the EP living the experience. Because for us, the purpose of running the GIP program is that the EPs who live the experience develop leadership, and that our members who are delivering the experience also develop leadership. And that's the individual value. The members developing leadership and like living a team experience that's meaningful for them, and they're getting the development that they wanted out of it, right? And the idea is that your product has to fit in all three, or else it won't be sustainable. Either you won't be able to sell it, or your members won't want to sell it, or it's a shitty product that isn't actually developing leadership in our EPs, which is what we want. Does that make sense? Okay? So I know it can sound theoretical, so that's why I want to give you guys some examples of products that in GIP that I think fill these three circles pretty well. Okay? Anybody know what country this is?
Spain.
It's Spain. That's right. So this is the story of AIESEC in Spain that I want to share with you guys. So yeah, what's Spain's like situation as a country in the last 2 or 3 years? Anybody?
Economic situation is very bad.
Very bad economic situation. Unemployment is like 50% or something like that. Like really, really bad, right? So think about it. AIESEC, what our product is talent to fill job roles in companies, let's say, right? Okay, if there's 50% unemployment, probably that's going to be pretty hard to be able to do that pretty well, right? Like, companies aren't even keeping their own employees hired, they're firing their own employees, and they're not hiring new employees, so why would they hire AIESECers? Actually, in this environment, AIESEC in Spain has grown a lot in IGIP. They've grown about 100% over the last year. And it's because I think they developed a product that fit those three circles, okay? So what they did, they looked at what does our society need right now in this situation, because they can't ignore it, right? You can't be a member of AIESEC and ignore that your country's in a deep economic recession, and that's the most urgent thing your society needs. So I said, okay, so how can AIESEC be contributing to that? Or what kind of leadership do we think Spain needs to get out of this situation? And what they thought Spain needed was entrepreneurship. They said the problem, the reason we got here is because we weren't entrepreneurial enough on our own. We were too dependent as a country on other countries. And we need to be more entrepreneurial. We need the young people in today's Spain to become entrepreneurs that are going to lead our country out of this mess, right? So that's what they said the leadership that Spain needed, entrepreneurship. So they went to entrepreneurs in Spain as a market segment, basically. And I said, well, what do you guys need? They're identifying the market value, right? They went to the entrepreneurs, what do you need? And the entrepreneurs, what they needed was quite simple. In an economic recession, if you're starting a company, it is not easy to sell your product because people don't have jobs, so they can't buy your product. Like, they're trying to keep their homes or like keep their kids in school. They're not buying your new product that's innovative or something, right? So what they needed was a way to sell their product or new markets to sell their product in. So what AIESEC is able to help them with is AIESEC is able to bring them marketing EPs from other countries where those entrepreneurs can sell their product, so that those entrepreneurs can survive, so that their companies can survive, so that those companies can then hire people and become part of the solution to fixing Spain's economy. So if we're talking, you can click, the market value is very clear, I think. Entrepreneurs whose companies are struggling because they can't sell their products in their domestic market, they need to be able to sell their products in international markets. And we can help them with that by bringing the marketing EPs, right? So that's the market value. Let's look at the organizational value. So imagine being an EP, coming from another country to do marketing in Spain. Or asking yourself, like, going to Spain to do a marketing internship. This isn't just a marketing internship. You're working in like a startup or a small company in the midst of an economic recession. And the work you do, the value of it, how well you do it, how like aggressive you are in your role, determines to some extent how successful this organization is. And this organization really needs to be successful, or else it'll just become another source, another problem in Spain's economy, right? I think that develops more leadership than just any marketing internship in a company, right? At least I would think so. I would feel that I was a part of something important, and I would feel that that was a challenging environment that was putting pressure on me to give my very best, right? I think that would be a leadership experience. And now, imagine being a member. You're a member and you're learning sales and delivery just like you would delivering any IGIP around the network. But not only are you learning how to sell and deliver, you're contributing directly to something your society needs today. And so you're contributing to the problems, or contributing to solutions to those problems in your society. You're also, I think, learning that when there are these challenges in our society, we do have ways to solve them, right? And I can be a part of solutions for the rest of my life in my society, or in global society, right? And I think that's the value for the member. I joined AIESEC, and not only was I able to get a team experience, not only was I able to learn how to sell and deliver, which is going to be important for my career, but I was able to contribute directly to solving the economic crisis in my country. I think that's a very powerful AIESEC experience. So hopefully that makes it a little more clear. I'll tell another story, too. Anyone know what country this is? Russia. Russia. Ah, somebody's like a geography nerd here. Okay. Yeah, so this is the story of AIESEC in Russia. You can click, thank you. Anybody know what subproduct Russia has grown a lot in this year? Education. Yeah. So Russia's grown a lot, also about 100% in the last year, and they grew through the teaching subproduct, right? So there's a lot of teaching TNs in the network. I did a teaching GIP, actually. I did a GIP education in China in 2009, okay? And there's tons of these internships in the network. So, I mean, what's special about Russia, right? So in Russia, the teaching internship isn't just for teaching students English or something like that, like it would be in many countries. It's also bringing like new teaching methods and teaching styles to Russia, which is something they need because their education system is very like old school, right? And not only that, not only do they teach the students using these new methods and like their own educational backgrounds in their home countries, they also help teach the other teachers how they can teach differently, what new exercises they can do, what activities they can do in a classroom, ways they can present information that's more interesting, dynamic assignments they can be giving to the students, right? So if you imagine again the experience of this internship for the members of AIESEC in Russia, this is really valuable because not only are they learning how to sell and deliver, just like every member of IGIP is around the network, but they're contributing to improving the education system in their country, which for them is really an issue. Because Russia is this emerging economy, very important in the world, all this stuff, and their youth are being let down by a very old style education system that's still very much the same as it was 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, etc. Right? And so the members of AIESEC in Russia, I mean, they just came out of this education system. They want to change things. They want to make things better, and they don't just want to sell an internship. They want to actually contribute to the solution here. And what they believe is that if they can bring enough interns to Russia to do teaching, that work in enough schools and change the way so many students learn and the way so many teachers teach, that they will eventually be able to change the education system in Russia. Which sounds like hugely ambitious, right? And it's like, I don't know how many internships they would have to do to be able to do that. 20,000? I have no idea. But it reminds me of kids dreaming of how they can change the world and going for it and trying to do it. And that's the organization that I want to be in. I think that's the experience that I want to live. So that's, for me, the value of the... No, that's fine. That's the value for the member, I think, is that they're contributing directly to their society in a very important way. And also for the EP, think again, like I did a teaching internship in China, but what more leadership would I have gotten if my internship wasn't just about teaching English to kids, but it was about, I'm going to also teach teachers at this school so that when I leave, I know that all the kids that come to this school this year, next year, the year after, can maybe get a 10%, 20%, 50% better education than they would have gotten if I were never here, right? And imagine the challenge it is as an EP. It's like I was challenged as an EP just trying to teach kids. Because what I found out is that when you're teaching 7-year-olds English, all they care about is how entertaining you are. So I was like having to entertain 7-year-olds for like 2 months. So I found that very challenging, right? But how much more challenging would that experience have been for me? And how much more meaningful would it have been for me if I knew that I wasn't just doing that, I was having to change a whole organization, right? I was in a school and I have to change the way this whole school works, which is super hard for some 21-year-old from another country, right? But I'm going to take that challenge because I believe in what I'm trying to do. And the market value is clear too. Market value, yeah, so the school gets a teacher, but not only do they get a teacher, they get probably something more beneficial than just any teacher that could come to their school. They get some new teaching methods, they get like excitement for the students, excitement for the teachers, and all this stuff. All right, can you put 2 more times? Yep. So there again, your 3 circles, right? When you have GIP done in the most powerful way, and yeah, when you have it done that way, you have a clear value in the market. You clearly develop leadership in the EP's life, and you also have a clear value for your members to be developing the leadership that's needed for their society, right? And that's purposeful, and it leads to growth when you have these things together. And when you're missing like one of these 3 or 2 of these 3, that's when you're not going to have as much growth. It's when your members don't feel excited about what they're doing. It's when the EP come and they say, "Why am I doing this internship?" But what you want is for all of these stakeholders to live the experience and say, "That was exactly what I wanted. It was more powerful than I would have guessed, and I want to do it again. I want to do it more, or I want to do it for more people." Good. Okay, so that's about I think the why of GIP and the products that we do in GIP. I want to talk a little bit about why GIP is important for AIESEC as an organization. So I believe that GIP, especially IGIP, is the most challenging environment for young people to develop themselves in AIESEC. I think I don't mean to like make that sound like everybody should be an IGIP or something like that. Every role can be extremely challenging depending on your context, depending on how ambitious you are, depending on the people you're working with. It can be super, super challenging. But I know from my experience, and from also seeing the experience of people around the world, doing IGIP or doing OGIP is a real challenge for people. And it forces you to overcome your own weaknesses. It forces you to become a better version of yourself, and to work harder than maybe you thought you did, you thought you could, to do things you haven't tried before. And so for me, it's very important that AIESEC has GIP as a program, because I think it develops a lot of leadership in young people, and a kind of leadership they need, where they're really in touch with the market, really in touch with the real world, in touch with what companies do, and what do they really value, because when you leave AIESEC, that's the world that you're probably going to have to be successful in, right? And not just get a job, but like if you're going to change the world after you leave AIESEC, 90% of you are doing it in a professional role, right? You're either volunteering all around the world, which would be awesome if you can afford to do that, or you're having to do it through a company you start, a company you join, the people you impact, the people you work with, etc. Next. Yeah, and I would just say, imagine the impact that responsible entrepreneurial leadership would have in all of the organizations around the world. Think of all the major brands you know, the big companies, and who's leading them, and imagine if people with very, very strong values who were responsible for the impact they were creating in the world, who were entrepreneurial about new opportunities, if they were running those companies and running those organizations, and how much better our world would be as a result of that. For me, that's why I take a lot of motivation for the GIP program. And I have an example for this. Does anybody know Elon Musk? He's an entrepreneur. He's American, I guess, but he was born somewhere in Europe. Or South Africa. He was born in South Africa. No one knows Elon Musk? So Elon Musk, he founded PayPal. You guys heard of PayPal? Yeah. He founded Tesla Motors. You guys know Tesla Motors? No? Tesla Motors makes electric vehicles. Electric vehicles were made in like the 1970s, and I don't know why they completely went away, and he started them again with Tesla Motors. He is the founder of SpaceX. Do you know SpaceX? SpaceX is the company that's trying to privatize space travel. So make it so that anyone can go to space. Basically anyone with like $250,000, but anyway, yeah. He's the founder of Solar City, I think is what it's called. It's one of the biggest solar energy companies in the world. And his newest project is something called Hyperloop. Have you heard of it? It's so you know how magnetic trains work in like Germany and China and stuff. There's super fast speed trains work with magnetics. So his idea is to put that underground in vacuums and make them tubes through which people can travel the world. So based on his models for it, if this were built, you'd be able to travel from New York to Beijing in like 2 hours. Yeah. So point is, Elon Musk, he's 41 years old, right? So like he's 40. He started PayPal before he was 30, right? This to me is an example. I mean, I don't think any of us can dream to be Elon Musk, probably, right? But the point is, if you have people who are entrepreneurial and have values or ideas about the world and how to make it a better place, and then they understand how to innovate and provide value to the market, you get very powerful results, right? Electric vehicles, the possibility of people going to space, like whenever they need, getting around the world much, much faster, energy revolution. I mean, this guy's involved in everything, right? Everything that's changing the world, he's involved with. Do you know Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter? So Jack Dorsey, I was at an event where he was speaking. And one of the things he said about Twitter is that it flattens the whole world, and it basically means people are listened to based on the merit of what they have to say. I thought that was so powerful, right? He said, he's basically like, I've created a platform that anyone can say anything they want, and the number of people listening to you and how influential you are is completely based on the merit of your ideas. It's like you don't have any special privileges because you're a president or a company or anything. It's whether or not what you're saying is things that people want to listen to. I think that's incredible. And if you think about the history of humanity, to be able to create a platform, I guess the first platform, where everyone's speech is equal, is incredible. And everyone can speak for the whole world if they want to, right? Again, how much impact people can make if they're entrepreneurial and they understand the market, but they also have values and they want to change the world in a positive way, right? I think it's absolutely incredible. And I want to be a part of an organization that dreams of building companies and organizations like that. And I want to develop leadership in people so that they become those people, and that's why I'm motivated to do GIP. Next. Yeah, and this actually is a real question. What happens if we don't grow in GIP? For me, this is a real question because if you look at AIESEC over the last several years, you've had GCDP growing at about 30% every year. Its growth rate is actually declining slightly on the global level. And then you have GIP, which has been growing between 10% and 0% for the last several years, and its growth rate is declining. In fact, right now, its growth rate in realizations has finally reached almost 0%. So since in the last 2 years, we've grown just barely over 0%, and it's trending downward, right? Now, in Q4, we've had a lot of raises and matches, so it looks like that's going to go up again. Yes. But this is a real challenge. Like, AIESEC doesn't seem to prioritize enough growing in GIP. There's you guys here, but there's everybody else in AIESEC in Egypt and everybody else in the AIESEC network, and we seem to prioritize growing in GCDP a lot and GIP not as much. And this is, I have concerns about what happens if that continues. So AIESEC, I think, risks several things if the GIP program, if they don't figure out how to grow the GIP program and make it much bigger. One is becoming an organization for volunteer experiences, which would still be awesome. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with like having impactful volunteer experiences, millions of them around the world. Like, we should totally be that organization. But I wouldn't want to be an organization of only volunteer experiences, because, as I said, most of you aren't going to change the world through your volunteer work. It's probably something you're going to do on the side or something like that, but you're going to have to change the world in a more professional environment. You're going to have to do it based on innovation. You're going to have to do it based on things that can sell in a market, all of that. Next. Yeah, I worry that we'll have little relevance in the market, and that we also won't be able to teach young people how to have relevance in the market. I think what the AIESECers in Spain and Russia learned was how they can make the world a better place, and how to provide value to a market that the market wants to buy, and that they can make a successful company out of. Finally. Yeah, same thing I said, right? I worry that AIESEC won't be able to create leaders that can bring purposeful innovation to the market if we don't grow in GIP. These are things that make me passionate about the program. More than passionate, it makes me angry when I see the program not growing, because this is actually what I fear the organization missing out on. And I fear people not being able to live the experience that I did, because I think I've lived an amazing experience. And I want that for every young person in the world, and I see it not happening. Next. So, I have a question for you guys. You are in the GIP program. In your team member experience right now, you're supposed to be living an inner and outer journey. And I just want you guys to reflect for like a minute or two and think of what is the journey you are living. And maybe you can think of it in these elements, right? Is what you've been doing so far purposeful for Egypt or the world? It doesn't have to be just Egypt, right? It could be the Middle East, it could be your community, it could be the whole world. Do you have a support system? Are you interacting with multiple stakeholders? Is your environment challenging enough? Are you challenging yourself enough? Do you take responsibility, and are you trying to reach goals? The same, for your inner journey, do you know what you're trying to get out of this experience personally? Do you ever take time to reflect on it? Have you learned about your values based on work in AIESEC so far? And what person are you, or what person are you becoming that you weren't before because of AIESEC? I think this is, you could reflect about this for hours, right? But I just want to give you guys like 2 minutes, and then I'll ask you guys to share any reflections you had, okay? Just think about that for 2 minutes, and then we'll see if anybody wants to share anything with the group. That's 30 more seconds, guys. Okay? Did this give anyone some thoughts that they'd like to share? An expectation was don't be scared. Now's your chance to fulfill that expectation. Yes?
Yeah, so in my own GIP experience, I think that I've experienced being in a challenging environment because the program is still very fresh and there are lots of bottlenecks. At the same time, the support system, I didn't have a lot of support in the beginning, but this made my experience more challenging, so it made it more rich. On the other hand, yeah. On the personal level, since it's a very challenging experience, I learned more about my own strengths and weaknesses and when do I crack what motivates me, what does not motivate me at all.
Cool. Cool, thank you. Someone else? Yeah?
I think that I passed through some of those phases on the different phases. Like on each stage in my life I have been, I faced a certain path of this kind of path. I reflected on the huge. But let's reflect upon certain cases. Also being an IGIP experience here, it's kind of challenging, gave me the challenging environment. And at the same time, I'm graduate and I'm working in the corporate sector. I've been working in the corporate sector. It was very, very challenging. I learned a lot from it. I started to reflect that I've been stressed a lot and everything, but I understood how much I'm capable of doing what I'm aiming for. Then I started, when I saw myself very, very, very capable of doing certain things, I started to think, okay, let's set the goals that I want to reach. I started to set the goals and I started to direct my life path according to previous experiences I had in my whole life, reflecting on all of that. So I set my goals and I started to reflect how I'm going to use those experiences to push forward. I started to understand that there are certain values I was missing in my life. And each step I modify the values that I have according to the current situations that I'm facing in my life. Whatever challenges I'm facing in GIP, for example, in my job, college, or whatever, I gained a lot of values. Those values kind of pushed me to frame out the path that I'm going to take to achieve this goal. So I think I'm kind of exploring everything each time.
Yeah. I think there's one thing you said about like you've done this many times in your life. I think is like this is an ongoing journey, right? It's like it's always you always are in multiple elements at the same time and stuff like that, right? It's not like today I'm reflecting, tomorrow I'm reinventing. I mean, maybe if you're super structured. Anyone else? Yes?
I think that I see myself in some of these circles. So, for example, understand personal values. So, I know that I want to join the OGIP to practice the interview, for the applicants, and get some of these experiences to my major, which is the HR or the business administration. So I was lazy a little bit in the function. So I got a support system by getting a phone call from one of my LC. I don't know who, but she told me, are you angry from AIESEC for anything? Have you faced any problem with AIESEC? So I said no. It gave me the challenging role and environment and individual responsibility and goals from my inner sense. I have to work, I have to do them to improve myself and to be loyal for this community. So that's why, for example, I'm working for Series XM. You don't hear from that. So I decided to come today without sleeping since yesterday. So I'm eager about that.
Okay. You should value sleep too. I'm glad you're here. Can you click one more time? So this is my last question for you guys. How do you want to positively impact Egypt in your lifetime? But you could replace Egypt with the world, Middle East, my family, but whatever is most important to you, right? How do you want to positively impact people, let's say, in your lifetime? And I don't think, hopefully, I don't want to give you guys 2 minutes, I just want to hear from people. This is how I want to positively impact the world. Yes?
Maybe I got better in my career path, so just become CEO of a company. And then I'm AIESEC alumni. I just want to impact the ICECers that I will give my experience to. I become a CEO of a company, will just be in some field in my career path. Giving the experience to the ICECers, to the new members in ICEC. I think they will give them the push to do what they dream of. Maybe just following my path. If I that's a leader, I hope that they will follow my path
Okay.
and that's the thing.
People, based on what you could do as CEO, people following their dreams. Yeah? Cool. Yes? You.
Put into statistics that 1% of the population in the world, they are the entrepreneurs who creates all of the workspace for others. I believe that I would like to help people and direct them with everything I have and any kind of experience to start to make everyone to be entrepreneurial people. So that this 1% will increase to 50, 70 in the whole world. So we don't face any economic crisis, political crisis, whatever, any kind of crisis.
Okay. You?
Maybe to start by myself and to become the change I want to see in this world, maybe start with education or to tackle whatever field of life that will promote me or promote others to becoming a different or a better Egypt.
Okay. Do you mean like being a teacher or?
Whatever field of life that promote my country, maybe you're becoming a teacher, maybe the market field, maybe entrepreneur field.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I think we should make use of AIESEC story in Russia, their improvement in education.
Okay.
Because if we improve the education, we will improve it.
Okay. Yes?
would have wanted to use the idea of the platform to the education system. Because I think that the education system all over the world is made on a wrong basis, which is always about mathematics and sciences, rather giving the chance for the young people to explore what they want, what's their talents.
Changing the education system,
Yeah.
and the values behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Yes?
I would like to impact the world by reducing the pollution, and my major is renewable energy engineering.
Right.
Yes, and I think that this is my path to change the world.
Yeah.
In Egypt specifically, renewable energy is also very fresh, and in order to make it successful, in order to make renewable energy happen, we need to know how to market it by having entrepreneurs in Egypt.
Right.
And that's why this is very relevant to AIESEC and to GIP.
Right. And last one, yeah.
By making every individual in each world, or maybe the Egyptian, every individual to see the values or to apply, see what the vision of the ICECers. You know that a lot of Egyptians or a lot of people in the world don't know what's really ICEC. So I'm kind of trying to change these videos to be like an ICECer, even if they don't really official members in ICEC.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what I'm passionate about is something similar to what some of what you guys said. Like I'm passionate about the people, let's say, becoming the best versions of themselves, becoming conscious of what their contribution can be, and making those things happen. What I found really interesting listening to what you guys are saying of what you want to do with your lives is a few things. One, I think all of them involve professional work. Like I think everything I heard was either something you would do through your job, or what you want to enable people to do through their jobs. And I also think many people, including myself, are still searching for how. I know what I want, what impact I want to have, but I don't know in what organization I could do that, or what my everyday would look like. I just know what impact I want to have, and that's how I feel as well. And for me, that's also a reason why I think the GIP program is hugely important to AIESEC, because what AIESEC in Spain and AIESEC in Russia, I think, show is that it's challenging to find, but you can find how you can have the impact you want within the market, right, and not outside of it. That you can do things in a job, or sell a product, or provide a service, right? Or provide a service. Who's that? Okay. Yeah, but you can sell a product, provide a service, impact a company in a way that can make the world a better place. And I think we're still searching for that. And so through AIESEC, I think you can find it, and then that can be a part of what you do for the rest of your life. So that's some stuff on the why of GIP. To recap for you guys what I've talked about, one is the purpose of AIESEC overall, which is trying to create a better world that has peace and fulfillment of each person's potential. And our vision for that, or the way we can do that, is that leadership can be developed in all of the young people in the world. And if those young people lead the world with values, the right values, let's say, then and in an entrepreneurial way, then we can really impact the whole world to be what we want it to be. And when we get to programs, what that looks like is you have to have people go through an inner and outer journey, right? That's a journey within themselves where they discover things, and also an outer journey that's challenging them. And the way that we are able to sell that, or put those on a really large scale, is by embedding them in the market. Meaning, we've developed ways of delivering an inner and outer journey that are relevant to the market, that companies will pay for, that organizations will pay for, because it also benefits them. And then we get this beautiful trifecta of the organization is benefited, the EP is benefited, the member is benefited, and that's the AIESEC we can have. And if we do that on an extremely large scale, then that's the world that we want to see. So that's how I just tried to say it. I think there's a maybe easier way to say it. So could you just click again?
Every generation has the chance to shape the world, but the challenges faced today are more complex than ever before. And yet everywhere, education systems are leaving young people unprepared to deal with the pace of economic, social and technological change. The world is defined by the people who live in it, so we believe the solution is to develop responsible and entrepreneurial young leaders today who will choose how the world will be led tomorrow. Unlike anyone else, we do this by providing practical leadership experiences to tens of thousands of young people all over the world. Since 1948, we've created challenging environments where young people can connect to the world, have the confidence to learn, and have the freedom to fail, where they can discover what really matters to them and realize their potential for the future. We give young people a chance to see the world, because if you see it, then you can start to understand it. And if you understand it, then you can start to change it. That's why we've committed to provide life-changing leadership experiences to 1 million young people in the next 3 years. Because when we add all those leadership stories together, we'll see a truly remarkable impact on the world. History has shown us what just one great leader can do. So imagine what 1 million great leaders can do. This is why we do what we do. But it's your world too. So how will you shape it?
So, normally it moves more naturally. It's not like a series of pictures, but a video actually. Who saw that for the first time? Anyone? That was the first time you saw it? Okay, somebody, that's the first time you saw it. I really encourage you to watch it. I think if you watch it again and again, and you can remember everything in there, basically you never have to sit in this session again. So maybe that's valuable to you. I think it's quite a good way to explain what AIESEC does and why we do what we do. I think we have a break. Is that right, or we go directly into the next session?
No, we'll take 5 minutes and then we'll go there.
5 minutes? Okay, so we'll just like 5 minutes. Then we go directly into the next session. You're going to go into OGIP and IGIP, and what you're going to talk about there is more of the relevance of, or how you deliver this relevance of GIP in the outgoing program and in the incoming program specifically. So we're going to get more specific into programs and talk about a little bit more about Egypt and how OGIP and IGIP make sense for Egypt and what you guys can be doing in your roles to be having this kind of impact on the market, on yourselves, and on the EPs that live your experiences. Okay? Thanks, guys.
In 5 minutes, IGIP would go into this room on the left here. It's the VIP room.
مندو سيب ده كده
لا خلاص اقفل بالك فوق السيشنز الريكوردز نورث امريكا هو اصلا هو عايز